And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on a Monday evening. Shohei Ohtani is officially a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers. That deal becoming official just in the last hour or two. Deal is for 10 years, $700 million. And the kicker is, not only is that the biggest contract in baseball history or professional sports history, but the Dodgers, also at the suggestion of Shohei Ohtani, have very much of that contract deferred. In fact, Shohei's only going to make $2 million per season from the Dodgers at least for the next 10 years, while $68 million gets deferred until later on between 2034 and 2043. What a deal this was for the Dodgers to ultimately pick up the biggest player, the best pitcher, the best player anyway, ever to play baseball, both as a hitter and a pitcher. You could argue that there's a better hitter in the game right now. You could argue that there's a better pitcher, but you can't argue that there's a better two-way player or a better player overall when you consider the impact Ohtani has in baseball. Great contract for the LA Dodgers. When you look at it more more closely anyway, it's going to count roughly $46 million towards the luxury tax calculations anyway. So it doesn't necessarily help them out as far as knocking that number from 70 down to 2 on their budget anyway. But it does certainly scrape off, $30 million of that total that they can then go out and go after a guy like Yamamoto. We thought in the original when we come into this offseason anyway, we told you guys that the Dodgers were going to need some starting pitching. They were very much interested in Yamamoto, and there wasn't necessarily certainty that if they did get Ohtani, that there would be enough money left to go after Yamamoto, or if they would want to even go after Yamamoto because of, hey, they got 2 Japanese players on the same team. Maybe they want to be their own man on a separate team and really have their team as their own, capitalize on that market, etc. Yamamoto's only 25 years old. If they decided to go after him and wanted to give him that 10-year, $300 million deal, that's $1 billion they would have given out to 2 players this offseason. Just mind-boggling to think about the possibilities for what could happen next with the Dodgers. I don't think money's going to be an issue for them. There's just a few starters on the market that are still out there from a free agent perspective that they could go after. Snell, they could bring back Kershaw, they could go after their own guys, etc. But I would expect them to entertain some big-time trades out there if they do not get Yamamoto. Even if they get Yamamoto, I still think they need at least 1 to 2 more starters. That's going to give them 25 to 30 starts this year. So let us know in the comment section what you guys think about the signing of Shohei going to the Dodgers. It was pretty much everybody's guess as to where he was going next year. Dodgers basically reset their payroll and tax threshold this past offseason, and this past season, by what you saw, the product on the field really suffered. They didn't have that same depth in that rotation, didn't have the same position player talent out there. They really reset everything to go after one guy. So they bet big on Shohei. They better hope he does not have another arm injury or that he doesn't get injured further on. But of course, that's the risk you run with any player. But he's already not going to be able to pitch for them the first year of that contract. And wow. Dodgers just betting big on the Shohei market here. You think about what their team could look like 10 years from now. That's when you're talking about a $30 million cap hit at that point, or a luxury tax hit at that point. on those teams. Of course, the dollar will probably be higher. The money in baseball will probably be bigger. 10 years ago, where were we? To look at the money that's being spent now in the game, where are we going to be 10 years from now? Maybe it's not as big of an impact, but that's quite a number to carry for a player who's not going to be on their roster anymore at that point. But either way, the Dodgers are going to be a force for the next 10 years. We'll see what they ultimately do with it. So they have a couple of great players at the top of their lineup, but they're very top heavy. They don't necessarily have the depth that they once had early on in their dynasty run here. But they need to get more than one World Series victory out of it in a COVID-shortened season to really solidify themselves as one of the greatest teams in baseball history. Because right now, I would still consider them maybe a step below the Atlanta Braves of the 90s anyway, with a team that won all those division titles in a row and ultimately only won one World Series. Dodgers right now are a step below that. I think their title a little less, not to say it's less worthy, but less, it just doesn't feel the same as the one that the Braves actually have. So for me, I still put them below the Atlanta Braves and all those division championship teams. The Dodgers absolutely need to win a World Series to justify the contract for Shohei. I think they will at some point during his tenure there in LA. I don't think they'll be shy of spending. In fact, I think they're probably going to get a couple of frontline starters, possibly bring back Kershaw, still have some of their depth options later on, and then they're back to being the Dodgers we saw in 16, 17, 18, rather than what we've seen over the last couple of years, which is a platoon-dependent team with two or three really great pitchers at the top and not much depth beyond that. Walker Buehler will be back healthy at some point. Kershaw, if he does sign back with the Dodgers, will probably be back around the All-Star break, maybe a little bit later on. But the Rangers are also said to be keeping tabs on him. But welcome in here to the Upside. Appreciate you guys joining us. Quick start here anyway, because Shohei Ohtani's deal is now official. 10 years, $700 million with $68 million per season deferred until after that contract is over. So quite a time to be a fan of the LA Dodgers. Curious to see what their next moves are, but like we talked about with you guys on Saturday, after that signing was basically broken by Ohtani himself, that there's not just the LA Dodgers when you consider Shohei Ohtani. All these other teams that were in the market for Shohei, promising their fans a player the caliber of Shohei or of Juan Soto or somebody of that ilk. Now the only guy left really on the market you're talking about from a pitching side is going to be Yamamoto, Blake Snell. You could argue Jordan Montgomery as well. From a hitting perspective, there's really only Cody Bellinger, and then it's not a whole lot of great offense after that. So the market's going to dry up pretty quickly here over the next week or two. Players like to know where they're going to be playing next season, usually around Christmas. So I would expect a flurry of activity. We told you guys to expect a Yamamoto signing here in the next couple of weeks before Christmas Eve. I would expect that still to remain the same. In fact, I'm still expecting it to probably happen by the end of this week. With all the meetings that he took, he is now in Southern California. He is now stateside, taking his first meetings on U.S. soil anyway. He has met with the Mets before in Japan. He's met with the Yankees today. He's met with the Giants already. We'll see how many more teams he ultimately meets with, but it sounds like he's got meetings through Wednesday or Thursday, and then he could make his decision sometime thereafter or have a second round of meetings with teams that he really wants to, narrow down. So we'll see what happens with Yamamoto's market. The Giants, I believe, absolutely have to bring him in at this point. They need a hitter as well. They obviously weren't going to get Juan Soto because of the same division thing with the Padres. I don't think there's any chance he could go there. But next offseason, I think they'll be right there for Juan Soto. I think they'll be right there for Pete Alonso. They need a marquee figure in that lineup. They really haven't had one since Buster Posey, and even he, while he was a great catcher, behind the plate, all those kinds of things, he was more of an all-around player. He wasn't necessarily the slugger that you put on the front of your stadium and say, that's the guy you want to come see every day. Buster Posey was still a great Giant, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't, say, like the Barry Bonds that they had before that. He wasn't that level of player. So I think they need to go out there and bring in some type of hitter this offseason to at least get the ball rolling in a positive manner. We've seen them miss again on top target free agent targets out there. Most notably Aaron Judge or Arson Judge, as John Heyman tweeted out last year infamously. They've missed on Carlos Correa. They've missed on other targets that they've tried to bring in. And honestly didn't attack opportunities I thought were there for them last offseason, most notably with guys like Xander Bogaerts, among others. they ultimately didn't spend the money on players that made a difference for them. They spent it on guys like Mitch Haniger, Michael Conforto, Sean Manaea, Ross Stripling on one-year deals, DeSclafani at some point. They also brought back Jock Peterson as well. And what did that ultimately get them? A 70-plus win team last year? We all knew that the 107-win team that the Giants had a couple years ago was an absolute fluke. All of the guys on that team were having great seasons, well above their career averages, and most of them were aging. So that was not going to be a team that was going to be able to replicate their success. They tried to do it. Great for them. I understand the reason why they did it. You want to be able to believe in those guys, think they can get the job done. After all, they just did it the year before. What does some guy on YouTube think that they're not going to be able to do it again? But just looking at that team, many of the players on that team just had too many things go their way to have career years as they're aging well past their prime. And it just, the teams that were in that division, the Dodgers are still there, the Padres are still there. Both of them on paper were already better than you. And the Giants decided to double down on that and really haven't recovered since then. It's only been a couple of years, though. They still can reverse course here by adding some marquee free agent for that middle of that lineup and give Logan Webb some help in that rotation. Logan Webb, great innings eater, but he was the only real innings eater guy out of that rotation that pitched over 150 innings, I believe, last year. So we'll see if the Giants get the job done, bringing in Yamamoto. They're said to be in the market for Jordan Montgomery if Texas can't get that deal done as well. But we'll see what happens with Yamamoto and the Giants. Other teams that were in the mix, we talked a little bit on Saturday about the Toronto Blue Jays. They've missed out now on the top two targets they had this offseason in Soto and Ohtani. And while they did that, or while the Yankees were getting better, they literally been sitting on their hands. I'm not saying that it's their fault. I'm saying they shot really big, and when you shoot really big, you also miss really big. Now you have, the best case scenario for them right now is to go to the trade market, maybe bring in an outfield bat, maybe a third baseman, bringing back Matt Chapman anyway at the hot corner is an opportunity for them as well. Their rotation still looks pretty solid for right now. They could trade Alek Manoah, but for that fan base, you guys saw how you guys got so excited to bring in Shohei Ohtani. All you guys knew you were the long shot from the very beginning, and it looked like you actually had a legitimate chance there, even with the error in a tweet anyway put out there by John Paul Morosi. Got all that fan base really excited. All the hockey reporters were even talking about it. Ultimately, doesn't happen. Now what does your team do next to recover from that? That'll be the interesting story for Ross Adkins the rest of this offseason. Do they get the bat they need in the middle of that lineup? Do they solve their third base issues, their outfield issues? We shall see. Welcome in, Vida. Welcome in, Charles. Ohtani did my Blue Jays dirty. I don't think Ohtani did your Blue Jays dirty at all. I think that's purely speculation by reporters that caused that to happen. Morosi's mistake being its own separate thing altogether. But everybody from the beginning of the offseason knew the Blue Jays were at least interested. They were a little bit of a surprise team. Everybody was picking them as, hey, maybe they'll finish 5th or 6th in the race. Hey, by the way, it doesn't matter whether you finish 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th. You still didn't get the player. So there was never really, the Blue Jays being thought of as the favorite for Ohtani. But Morosi's tweet certainly didn't do them any favors. Sub-Zero, where is the Japanese pitcher going? Well, that's what we were just talking about a moment ago with Yamamoto. I still would probably pick one of the Giants, Mets, Yankees, or Dodgers. If I had to guess right now, the Yankees really kind of put their foot, the pedal to the metal, if you will, for the Juan Soto trade. If they take that mentality again, I would say Yamamoto very likely could end up in New York. If they don't, I think he ends up on any of the other 3 teams. I don't think there's any other horses in the race at this point. I'm sure other teams would love to be in there. I know the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Braves, Red Sox, the Blue Jays have all checked in on Yamamoto. And he's, according to John Heyman, already out of the price range for some of those teams already. We shall see where he goes. The Mariners, another team that's in that conversation for Yamamoto. But there's several international players coming over this year. Imanaga's another one. If you miss out on Yamamoto, maybe you get him. But he's more of a number 3, 4 type starter, whereas Yamamoto's more of a 1, 2. We thought Senga last year was a 2, 3. He looks more like an absolute 1 right now, as dominant as he was in his first year in the big leagues with the Mets. If recent history is to be believed, we really might have another, really great pitcher coming over from the international pool of players, and whoever gets him hopefully has a great ace for the next 10 years going forward. Any word on Young-Ho Lee? Not as of yet. Rumors are still speculating that he's waiting on the market for Bellinger a little bit because the Giants are said to be one of the teams in that market as well. Young-Ho Lee has got a lot of teams interested in his bat, coming off of a major injury in the KBO. His signing window is only 30 days, so if Bellinger signs here in the next week or two, I would expect Young-Ho Lee to be pretty quickly thereafter because he's only got that 30-day window. I believe his window closes, I want to say close to the very end of December or the very beginning of January. I can't remember the specific day, but I would expect some news to happen pretty much within a 24 to 48-hour window after we get Cody Bellinger's signing. But some speculation has the Padres as the favorites for him. After the trade of Juan Soto, they saved $38 million off of their salary, off of their payroll structure anyway for next season. I still think they want to finish underneath $200 million for the season, or going into next season anyway. Adding Lee would certainly add to that cost, and they may have to trade off some more pieces if they were to bring him in. But they've got some great young players coming. They got a great young superstar outfielder that's going to take the spot of Juan Soto in that lineup at some point. But they do need a replacement for Trent Grisham. Lee would be a great fit there. So if I had to guess, a handicap it for you, I would say the Padres very likely end up with Lee. But there's no shortage of teams in the market for him as well. Not too many headlines today, just a little bit more of the fallout anyway from the trades that we saw at the end of last week. Max Stassi going from the Angels to the Braves, and then the Braves moved him on to save a roster spot anyway, clear off some money to send him on to the White Sox. They're actually eating all but the league minimum salary, so they're actually carrying a number of around $6+ million on his salary. Plus, they're going to be a luxury tax payroll team anyway. So every dollar that they spend, it's another 40% tax on it. So he's going to cost them roughly almost $9 million to play for the White Sox next year. So interesting moves by the Braves. They did something similar last year with Jake Odorizzi to acquire Colby Allard. They basically ate $10 million of the salary for Odorizzi for him to go on to Texas and pitch for, to hopefully pitch for Texas. Ultimately, he was injured before the spring training even began. But Braves doing things a little bit differently than we've seen other teams do it. If the Yankees don't get the Japanese pitcher, do you think Blake Snell or someone else? Blake Snell, I think, is out of their market. I don't think he wants to be in New York. I think he's very likely to stay on the West Coast. I think the furthest east he goes, probably going to be St. Louis or Atlanta. I just don't think there's any way he goes up to the Northeast. Teams I'd expect to sign him, he's not going to go back to the Padres. They're trying to save money. Giants are very much in the mix there. They need a starter. If they miss on Yamamoto, say the Dodgers get him, then I'd say the Blake Snell market really kind of can kind of settle around the Giants. The Mariners seem to be a team that's really in there for him as well. Yankees got a bullpen arm from the Dodgers. There was a small trade anyway, a minor league trade, a prospect for prospect trade. Trey Sweeney goes from the Yankees for a couple of minor leaguers from the Dodgers as well, or from the Dodgers anyway, as Trey Sweeney goes over to LA. Joe Kelly's contract became official. Jeimer Candelario's contract became official, 3-year deal. A little bit of a surprising note anyway is that the New York Yankees were very much in there for Candelario until the Juan Soto trade. That's when they made the official decision to move LeMahieu over to third full-time, so that will be your everyday third baseman in New York. They still need to solve that starting pitching, but that's, kind of two birds, one stone with that Juan Soto trade. The Alex Verdugo trade the night before. Yankees getting some of their business done pretty quickly here over the last week or so. We'll see if they get that starter next. So I would expect the Yankees, if they don't get Yamamoto, maybe Imanaga could be the guy that they get. Maybe a reunion with Jordan Montgomery, but I would doubt that because of how poorly Montgomery viewed his time after the trade from the Yankees to the Cardinals. Really didn't think they utilized him very well. Pretty much the same group is still there that traded him, and I don't think he's very likely to go back there unless the money's just obscene. But we shall see. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Not too much news, as I told you guys earlier. Once Shohei Ohtani moves, the market's pretty much going to be at a standstill as kind of a reaction, figure out the lay of the land, what this means for the future of baseball. But over the next 24 hours, tomorrow, we should see a flurry of activity. I'd expect the market around Yamamoto to really heat up tomorrow as he kind of finishes off the meetings that he's scheduled anyway, and see if there's a front runner that emerges from that first round of meetings. There may not even be a second round of meetings with Yamamoto, so keep your eyes peeled for what happens there. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. All you guys who have been chatting with us over the last week or two, really have enjoyed all the conversations we've had with you guys. So, if you guys want to, join us the rest of the week, we'll be live for you guys every single weeknight and break down all the latest transactions, trade rumors, free agent signings, how it impacts your team, those kinds of things. We'll try to keep you guys up to date, and feel free to chat with us and have some fun with us. We'll get into some trade talk again tomorrow, but I want to kind of get to the Ohtani conversation as far as that 10-year deal, $700 million, $68 per season, deferred, with only $2 million per season going to Ohtani, 46 of which will be counted towards the luxury tax calculations for the Dodgers going forward. So they will be a tax-paying team even with that deferred money. So great contract for both Ohtani and the team, and we shall see if this ultimately leads towards winning with the Dodgers, who they ultimately bring in. Ohtani didn't decide to defer this just because, hey, he wants to, save the Dodgers money in the long run. He wants to get paid, of course, but he wants to win. Just so you guys understand, when a player decides to defer money, that means the value of the dollar at that point right now is more valuable. If he's willing to defer it in the long term, the money is actually less valuable over the course of that contract. For instance, the value of the dollar now versus the value of the dollar 10 years from now will cause that contract to actually work better for the Dodgers in the long run, because that $700 million isn't all at once, isn't all right now. And so that's why the contract being deferred helps the Dodgers a little bit, but it also helps Ohtani as he tries to win a championship, which he's really been trying to do with the Angels, never really got the opportunity to do. Angels put out a statement today, a very classy statement anyway, basically saying thank you for coming to the Angels, really appreciate all you brought to baseball, once in a lifetime, once in a generation, once every 100 years type pitcher, type player, and we were lucky enough to call you our player for these 6 years, thank you, blah, blah, blah. The one downside for the Angels, before the contract was even signed officially, they were already tearing down the mural outside the stadium. So to say they're a little hurt that he's playing for the crosstown team anyway, and the Dodgers, affects them a little bit, I would say that's a little bit of an understatement. So we shall see how the Angels respond. They do have some money now to spend on free agents. I still think they're going to end up being the fourth best team, kind of an also-ran in the AL West. And their best bet is to bring in Ron Washington, develop their young guys, let him work his miracles with that young shortstop there, Zach Neto, and see what they have. I think the Angels in a few years could be interesting, but they really sold out, bottomed out with Shohei Ohtani here. I think Mike Trout, very likely, could be moved in the next year or two. I think Perry Manassian's not going to be able to survive till the trade deadline. I think he's going to be gone, and I think we're going to have a whole new regime going into to the LA Angels at some point. I feel for Ron Washington. He's going to be a great manager for them. I just don't think they're going to give him an opportunity to still be there for that next cycle of winning with the Angels. But Ohtani obviously had a great career there, a great start in Major League Baseball, and he thanked them for his time there. So did the Angels. And time to turn the page. Off-season, story all about Ohtani for the last month or two. Now it's on to Yamamoto, Bellinger. It's on to other trade targets out there like Glasnow, Burns, Adames. What happens with Montgomery, the Texas Rangers money situation? Are they going to be able to repeat, bring back their guys? What happens with Josh Hader? Are the Angels or the Orioles able to bring in their starter? Do the White Sox finally move on from Dylan Cease? Do the Yankees finally add that starter that they need in that rotation? What happens with the Blue Jays now that they missed on Soto and Ohtani? First part of the offseason is now over. And time to move on to that second part. Should be a fascinating story. Hope you guys join us for the ride. Y'all have a great evening. We'll see you guys tomorrow night.